Life, as we know it, can only thrive because of the moon. She is Earth's constant companion, regulating the rhythms of the planet so animals can come together and raise the next generation. The moon influences the daily, monthly, and yearly cycles, including the changing seasons, which are most extreme nearer the poles. An Arctic fox emerges from a cruel winter. She has spent the last 4 months alone in temperatures far below freezing. But now, a new year begins. Spring is her cue to reunite with her lifelong companion. But if she is to raise a family once more, she must find him. And together, they need to keep pace with the lunar-driven seasons. Our moon shapes life on Earth in extraordinary ways, creating the swelling tides, dictating the length of day, summoning the seasons. She can light the way to love, reveal hidden pathways, bring times of plenty, or strip away chances of survival. .6 billion years ago, young Earth is thought to have collided with another planetary body. The debris fused, and our moon was born. She has been Earth's stabilizing partner ever since. The Earth is slightly tilted, like a slowing, spinning top. But it is the moon that holds the planet steady as they orbit around the sun together. Earth's tilt means the northern and southern hemispheres take turns leaning into and away from the sun's light, bringing us the turning of the seasons and the perfect moments for romance. As the moon steers the north toward the sun, in Iceland, the days are getting warmer and longer. For the Arctic fox, now is the time to mate. Arctic foxes pair for life, but they are short-lived. She is only 4 years old, but this could be her last chance to raise cubs. If her partner has also made it through. She returns to their former home, desperately searching. But there is no sign of him. A familiar call. With the change of season, he is on his way home. With no time to lose, they must reclaim their territory. From mountaintop to the shoreline. This rich habitat offers both shelter and food to sustain them and their future family throughout the year. But during the breeding season, the best land is the most contested. A challenger. Her mate must act. This intruder may be the first, but he won't be the last. To maintain this territory, the pair will need to fiercely defend it for the next 6 months. For now, they can focus on each other. If mating is successful, their cubs will arrive just in time for summer. The moon-driven seasons create a distinct annual calendar at the poles, while closer to the equator, the moon's illuminating presence in the night sky creates a more dominant rhythm. The lunar month. Over 29 days, she completes one orbit around the Earth. As she journeys, sunlight shifts across her face, marking time in phases. And it is this cycle that some of the Earth's oldest life forms have evolved to follow. Off the Caribbean island of Curacao, a new life begins. A baby mountainous star coral, a mere speck in the ocean, is embarking on the single greatest adventure of its life. To search for a place to settle and call home. Only the most bustling reef will do, where it can find food and protection. And this little coral larva can travel over 500 kilometers of open ocean to find it. Life began for this larva the way it does for many corals around the world. On a reef. Built by millions of tiny polyps, individual animals living together as a colony. Light-sensitive cells allow them to track the moon's light throughout their lives. The full moon is the signal for them to get ready to spawn. In the nights that follow, each species releases their eggs and sperm in synchrony. mass spawning that boosts the chances of fertilization. A new generation is born, all set to seek a new reef of their own. For the newborn larva, it begins its descent. The hair-like cilia on its body and sensory cells detect tiny vibrations and smells of nearby reefs. Not bad for something smaller than a grain of sand. It searches for exposed limestone to provide a grippy surface. But for every moment spent searching, the tiny larva is rapidly losing energy. And at risk of becoming food. Even so, it continues to be fussy. After all, the colony it forms could be here for over 500 years. This is the place. Over hours, the lava transforms, flattening into a tiny polyp, anchoring itself to the limestone. Within days, tiny tentacles emerge, reaching out for any morsel of food that happens to float by. Their photosensitive cells begin to tune in to the cycle of moonlight. Over time, the once single drifting larva will grow into a towering colony and form part of a reef. Where it will become part of an ecosystem that protects coastlines, provides oxygen, and supports a quarter of all life beneath the waves. Earth bursts with an incredible diversity of life, supported by the moon. A barren rock with almost no atmosphere. Every species that has ever existed on Earth has evolved under her familiar face. Scarred, wrinkled, blemished, marked by over 500,000 craters, with black basalt plains and pale mountain peaks. Strikingly beautiful and powerful. It is this exposed surface that allows her to reflect 12% of the sun's light into the night. Her glow reaching even the darkest habitats of our planet. In the Atlantic rainforest of Brazil, the moon's bright light forces many to retreat into the shadows. But not blacksmith tree frogs. They become more active and embrace the glow. An essential tool when looking for love. Construction work on this brightly lit site is well underway. And this bachelor has a lot to do before the moon sets in 10 hours' time. To be worthy of a female, he builds a crater-like nest the size of a dinner plate. The lunar light will reveal any flaws. Too deep, and the eggs may drown. Too shallow, and they'll dry out. It's a labor of love, and he must guard it with his life. Competing males will kill to steal nests. But his work isn't done yet. As the moon casts her spotlight on his creation, it's time to get the attention of the females. He calls up to 120 times a minute to showcase his newly built nest. And someone's taken notice. A rival. It's a standoff. Close to drowning, he must fight for his life. Trespasser evicted. But the moon waits for no one, and there is no time to lose. This time, a female. With his nest in the spotlight, she inspects it for flaws. Not too deep. Not too shallow. She approves. Under the moon's light, together, they make it theirs. She lays over 2,000 eggs. And leaves before sunrise. This dedicated dad will nurture their brood, with only the moon for company. When full, the moon completes her longest stretch across the night sky, rising and setting opposite the sun. Though she is nearly 400,000 kilometers away, her dazzling glow can illuminate empty plains on Earth, making all the difference between success and failure when choosing a mate. April, on a plateau in Utah. For the last 2 weeks, sage grouse have been gathering at the arena known as a lek for their breeding season. Each morning, when predators are scarce, males compete in a dance-off before sunrise. But tonight, the contest is about to peak. The arrival of the full moon illuminates the plateau, extending dawn by more than 3 hours. It gives the males extra time to strut their stuff. And for this female, longer to judge them. Over 70 males are competing for her attention. But only the best will make the cut. As they strut, they gulp into their large air sacs. With each forceful exhale, they rapidly deflate, creating a distinctive pop. This male works the moonlight to his advantage. It illuminates the whites of his chest and spots on his plumage. She's noticed. But looking good only gets you so far. She's after a male with stamina. The longer he struts, the stronger her future chicks may be. Eager young males rush in, desperate for attention. But unsolicited advances are not welcome. She sets the rules here. As the moon begins to set, the weaker males quickly run out of steam. Now she can separate the men from the boys. After circling the dance floor, he's the one standing head and shoulders above the rest. 3 beat pops 10 times a minute, each one landing perfectly in time with his strut. And he's been going for 7 hours straight. One last serenade, and her choice is made. The other females appear to agree and form an orderly queue. Time is up. This contest is over. His winning performance was made possible by the light of the full moon. And she has secured herself the strongest male here. While the moon determines the brightness of the night, she also influences the light we receive in the day. Her gravitational pull slows Earth's spin to a 24-hour cycle and supports the tilt that decides the relative length of day and night. At the equator, they stay almost equal all year. But nearer the poles, when the north leans into the sun, it rarely sets. Midsummer, in Iceland. The landscape is transformed. The Arctic foxes' lives have changed too. With temperatures rising, their winter coats are shed. And they are now parents to 6 new cubs. But they only have 10 weeks to get them to independence before winter returns. For the cubs, play is always the priority. Sparring and stalking build their strength and hunting skills. And like all youngsters, they're always hungry. At just under 2 kilograms, they will need to double their weight to face the world ahead. Mum has raised them on milk, but now she must wean them. Dad must guard their prized territory, now more than ever, to keep rivals out and his young family fed. At the coast, seabirds have arrived in their thousands. Here to rear their chicks, lured by the abundant waters and warmer weather. A reliable feast for Mum to feed her growing family. But one bird is only enough to feed around 2 cubs. Every hour counts. So she must make the most of the 20 hours of daylight summer brings her. But this feast won't last. The majority of seabirds will leave as soon as their chicks fledge. The relentless hunts and intense heat begin to take their toll on Mum. But the cub's hunger never wanes. She must keep going. A missed meal could threaten the cub's future. A third won't survive their first year from a lack of food. Soon, the days will become shorter as the moon guides Iceland into autumn. The Earth is the only planet in our solar system under the influence of a single moon. Her gravity draws the seas towards her, setting a consistent rhythm that travels across the entire planet. The tides. Where land meets sea, the repeated ebb and flow of tides carves solid rock to form tidal pools. Warmed by the sun, these pools have been nurturing new life for over 600 million years. Shallow refuges cut off from the ocean, yet deep enough to hold water. And today, still act as natural incubators and safe havens. Off the coast of Brazil, nurse sharks are drawn to these tidal pools. The open ocean is a ruthless place to give birth, as predators lurk everywhere. Crossing the barrier, they find safety together, forming neonatal sisterhoods, while the warm water incubates and speeds up their pregnancies. But the pools only open once every 12 hours, when the tides rise almost 2 meters. Just enough to flood the rocky barrier and open safe passage. But this young mum-to-be is running late. The water is too shallow, and she cannot reach safety with the other females. She has no choice but to wait. Alone, she is vulnerable. Predators roam these waters. Tiger sharks. Aggressive, opportunistic hunters. And they will eat other sharks. Their electroreceptors detect even the slightest movement of prey. She must lie low. But the oceans are always shifting. Her own senses detect increases in pressure as the water rises above her. High tide is coming. This is the moment. It is only with the moon's gravitational pull that the sisterhood has this oasis. The tide allowing them to reach the otherwise unreachable. The moon's pull keeps the Earth's tides in constant motion. But twice a month, the moon, earth, and sun align. Their combined gravitational force causes the ocean to surge higher than usual. These events are known as the spring tides. One species' entire reproductive cycle is synchronized to them. The sloped, sandy beaches of California play host to one of nature's most lusty beach parties. Anticipation is building beneath the waves. Gatecrashers line the shore. No one wants to be the first to a party. Soon, the shoreline turns silver as thousands land on the beach. Californian grunion. Females lead the way, drilling into the sand with their tails, each laying around 3,000 eggs. And for the males, it's a race to fertilize as many as possible. All before the tide recedes in 2 hours. It's a mating frenzy. But fish out of water can only breathe with a passing wave. The moon high, the party peaks. But for some, it can be a little overwhelming. He can't reach a female, and no one wants to be left high and dry. It's time to get back to it. Finally, he reaches a female. The tide begins to recede, and the party ends as quickly as it started. The last waves wash sand over the exposed eggs, leaving no trace. After 14 days, the second spring tide of the month arrives. Beneath the warm, moist sand, away from the regular waves, the Grunion eggs have been developing to be ready for this moment. The turbulence triggers the eggs to hatch. And a new generation enters the sea. The moon sets the rhythm for life along shores across the planet. But its influence doesn't stop there. Even on land, top predators rely on its tides to fuel their success in courtship. On Costa Rica's coast, a male jaguar is on patrol. He spends most of the year alone in the forest. But for the past few weeks, he has been stalking this beach. He knows the full moon's high tide brings opportunity to feed. Sea turtles. They are returning from across the ocean to lay eggs in the dry sand where they were born. For just a few nights, they reach further up the beach with the high tides. Slow and predictable, they are easy to catch. One turtle will sustain him for up to 3 days. This energy boost puts him in prime condition for courtship. If he can find a female, they will mate as much as possible while she is receptive. He has learned to take advantage of the rhythms of the moon, which increases his chance of fathering the next generation. Although the moon is only 1% of the Earth's mass, her gravitational pull is strong enough to hold Earth steady on its tilt. Twice a year, light falls evenly on both hemispheres. And day and night are of equal length across the planet. The equinox. It's autumn in Iceland. The seasons are shifting again. For the Arctic foxes, it's the final race to prepare for winter. Their time as a family is coming to an end. As food becomes scarcer by the day, Each fox must fend for itself. 5 cubs have already found independence, carrying enough fat reserves to face the bitter cold ahead. But one still lingers, underweight and reluctant to leave home. At the shoreline, his father forages. Even he must gain more than half his body weight if he is to make it through the impending winter. He has guarded this territory for good reason. Though most of the birds have gone, the shore offers him a lifeline. Protein-rich mollusks and crustaceans. And now, his smallest cub wants in on it too. He needs to learn fast. This could be his last chance to bulk up. He's leaving no rock unturned. A scorpionfish. A significant catch. These foraging skills will not only give him the calories he needs, they are going to last him a lifetime as he seeks to carve out his own territory. Mum is no longer foraging. The last 6 months have drained her, and she is exhausted. But she has succeeded in raising yet another generation. And just in time. If her cubs make it through the winter, they will begin to seek mates and start families of their own. As they, too, learn to keep pace in this unforgiving land, rising to the challenges of the seasons, steadied by the rhythms of the moon. To capture the coral larvae on film, the Moon team joined researchers from the Kamabi Institute.
Corals have the ability to sense the moonlight and how many days after the full moon it is. They can sense light, they can sense colors, they actually have a lot of the same sensory systems that we have. They just don't have big eyeballs measuring light the way we do. When the moon's getting full and it's time for spawning, we have to be ready as well. My name is Kristen Marhaber, and I'm a coral scientist, and I'm lucky enough to study the coral reefs here in Curacao in the Southern Caribbean. Our main mission is to solve the trickiest puzzles in coral reproduction and coral breeding. Coral reefs around the world are facing one setback and one trauma after another, and it can be really hard to watch. And it's gotten so bad that for many corals, they haven't actually successfully made any babies in decades. But we know that they can still make eggs. We know they can still get their eggs fertilized. So we have to figure out how to restore all of the conditions in nature that let corals be parents and let corals have babies. But one thing that really keeps us motivated is the fact that we're surrounded by babies. And it's really hard to be sad and pessimistic when you're surrounded by really cute babies. The corals all know how big the moon is, and they use the moon to synchronize their spawning. We basically have to have a sort of neonatal intensive care unit ready for baby corals right after we go on an expedition scuba diving at night. We've got divers in multiple parts of this reef. There are divers diving in multiple parts of the island, and we're going to do 2 dives here tonight. And hopefully by the end of the night, we will have caught a bunch of spawn and we'll be back in the lab raising coral babies for science and for conservation. We end up taking almost a comical amount of stuff in the water on some dives. Some corals make it pretty easy for us, and we can just use a big tent over the coral colony that just helps funnel their eggs into a collection tube at the top. Some corals are a little trickier and they just spray a mist of eggs into the seawater, and so we'll use maybe a bag or a syringe to try to collect them. Once the spawning peak is done, we're heading back to shore and we're heading back to the lab while those eggs are still good. They're only viable, they'll only stay alive for a few hours. So we had a really good dive. So we've got a few different males and females collected, and we're headed back to the lab to mix them to hopefully get good fertilization. What we are doing in the lab is we are trying to shepherd these corals through the whole fertilization process, then get them to metamorphose and settle and grow, and then get those babies to get bigger and bigger and actually grow into eventually adult corals. So we're essentially running an IVF clinic and a daycare for baby endangered species. We've been able to learn so much about the timing of coral spawning, how you collect it, how you keep it healthy in the laboratory as you get the eggs to fertilize. And as we figure out more elements of the puzzle, we're sharing those answers with the global community. We're in year 50 of a 200-year project. So I'm not going to be around to see the really cool results of the amazing restoration work that people do in the future. We're already seeing the impact of our work, and we know that with hundreds of more years of innovation, there's going to be some really cool coral restoration projects happening. When I started my career, it was pretty much considered impossible to raise baby corals. We took something from impossible to possible. And now the next generation has the challenge of scaling it up and deciding how we're going to rebuild coral reefs.